can't overlook any of these games. And
Nope.
with the coaching boost that they've gotten, and I do think it's a coaching boost going from, and I respect Lovie Smith. I think he's a great person from everything I know. I know Don Patterson knows Lovie and has spoken very highly of him. But I think Brett's a better coach. I think he's better for that situation. I think he's being more of a natural recruiter than Lovie. I think he's got the ability to make that a very respectable program, which should scare Iowa fans because somebody's got to be bad, right? Somebody has to be bad. And I don't know that Pat Fitzgerald's just going to be willing to, accept, I guess we're 3-9 every year. I don't think that's going to happen. And unless we think Nebraska's just going to continue wallowing in slop for years, something's going to change. And I hope it's not Iowa that has to take its time there at the bottom. But there's just a great division. Everybody wants to think that the Big Ten West is kind of the crappy division. It's just not what the Big Ten East is. But it's, as we've talked about, Mark, it's maybe the most balanced division in college football.
I love it. And it's not balanced mediocre. It's balanced with a lot of top 15 to 40 teams. And that I think I'm intrigued by the Big Ten Western Division.
And the teams that scare me, Mark, not the other teams, obviously they could lose to Wisconsin, they could lose to Minnesota, but the teams that are kind of sneaky scary are the teams that aren't even in the mix there. Illinois, Nebraska, and Northwestern. Like those teams all could beat you. I could see Nebraska finishing top 2 or top 3 in the division. Not saying they will, but I could see it happening. Iowa's nearly lost to Illinois. It seems like every other year they lose to Northwestern. Even that game last year against Northwestern, it was not like a dominant performance from Iowa, and Northwestern was terrible. So, I guess my point is
Northwestern had the ball to win the game.
Yes.
Near the red zone at the end of the game.
I know. And so I looked back at Iowa's schedule the other day, Mark, and I didn't realize how many close games they were in. It's like every week they were playing. Listen, you're 10-2, and everybody wants to celebrate, and I was celebrating. Don't get me wrong, but they were like the opposite of Nebraska. Like they were playing close games and winning them. Nebraska was playing close games and losing. There's a very fine line, right? In college football. Yeah. And I'm not, there is something to be said for being able to win close games. I'm not taking that away from Kirk and this
skill.
Team.
Sure.
It's a skill, definitely. And not everybody has it. Certainly Scott Frost doesn't. But the schedule gets tougher. We keep saying this, and Illinois is not going to be a pushover in Champaign.
And there is some randomness to it. It's like turnovers. Iowa has proven through the years that they're not a mistake in terms of their excellence in creating turnovers. But there is a element of randomness to a certain extent in turnovers and in close wins in Nebraska. It's going to be fascinating to see. Nebraska is the most fascinating team to me in the division just because of how they played last year, but continue to find a way to lose. And their Ohio State, Michigan State becomes Michigan, Indiana, Rutgers.
But doesn't it freak you out a little bit, Mark, that we already know Minnesota, Purdue, Iowa, and Wisconsin are in position to compete for the division. But then doesn't it also kind of freak you out that the two teams that no one's talking about is Illinois, who's got Brett Bielema as their head coach. And again, I know that he hasn't had a lot of time to recruit yet. And then maybe the best coach in the Big Ten, and Pat Fitzgerald, like that always he's the guy that goes from 3-9 to 9-3 routinely. So that is a little bit freaky. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think there's a better chance that Northwestern, can we both agree there's a much better chance still, despite his track record, that Northwestern goes 3-9 this year than 9-3, given their talent level.
Yeah, that's a high leap, even though they've done it a couple times, as you mentioned, against how good the rest of the divisions become.
Yeah, and I just don't know who, from a skill, at some point, right, as our friend Steve Dace says, sometimes the Jimmies and Joes beat the X's and O's, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know that they have the Jimmies and Joes. But anyways, no, thank you to all the Super Chats. Appreciate that. And thank you to Alec. Glad that we were able to make that happen. Hopefully we'll have him back game week in October.
Steve and I just had a Rock'em Sock'em segment there on Michigan Podcast. So folks, check that out because I came emblazoned in scarlet and gray this week. I typically don't do that, but I typically am very measured and neutral. But yeah, Big Ten quarterback rankings. I'm working feverishly on those.
Crap.
Spencer Petras. Okay, yeah. Tommy DeVito, speaking of Illinois, had a really nice season with Syracuse. His one starting year, 19 touchdowns, 5 picks.
Yes, nobody's talking about him. I'm telling you, the Big Ten was not very good. I remember me saying this all last year, Mark. Last year was the year of the wide receiver in the Big Ten Conference, right? Yeah. With David Bell and Freifogel and, I mean, just everybody that Ohio State throws out there. And then you look at quarterback, and it was kind of a down year. I think maybe that changes this year. I think Connor Bazelak, I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar at Indiana, but I think he's going to give them a boost. Tanner Morgan, it's now or never for him. Certainly CJ Stroud, and we'll see. The Michigan quarterback battle is interesting, but DeVito's a guy nobody's talking about. And yeah, I mean, it does. So Alec kind of has the opposite perspective of someone like me or an Iowa fan who has been calling for Kirk and Iowa to go to the portal at quarterback, and he's like, we got to do something other than go to the portal at quarterback. So it's interesting, and I did have that discussion last night. If anybody missed the show with Tony Rassiopi, head over to From the Hawkeye of the Storm. It's also on our podcast, so check out that Hawkeye Hangout edition. But he talked about Art Sikowski with me after the show, and I do find that interesting. Art Sikowski has dealt with so much from an injury perspective that, Tony, again, Art's Tony's guy, just like Spencer is Tony's guy. But it'll be interesting to see if, regardless of who starts, I would expect, assuming both DeVito and Sikowski are healthy, it's not going to be like the Peters Sitkowski battle, because those guys couldn't stay healthy. So both these guys can stay healthy. They're going to push each other. And both their clocks are ticking now. I mean, DeVito's got 1 year. I think maybe Sitkowski's got a couple of years left at least. But it will be intriguing to see what happens there at quarterback.